Welcome, everybody, to the Wonder Boldly podcast. I'm Christine Santos, bringing to you all of the action steps and knowledge I've learned on my journey to becoming an online business owner, quit my corporate job, and now live the life that I desire on my own terms. This podcast is jam-packed with all the knowledge I've gained over the past few years growing my online business. I am so passionate about you going after what it is that you want. I want to encourage and motivate you to know that you too can live the life that you desire. Thank you so much for listening. Let's go. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Wonder Boldly. One of the questions I get asked a lot that I love, because I love to answer it, is why should I start a podcast when the podcast market is so huge? So at the time of this recording, it's beginning of 2024, there are nearly 2.5 million podcasts listed on Apple Podcast. But there are only 450,000 podcasts that are active. So what does that mean? That simply means that the chances of being found and making a connection are so much higher than you think. And in order to do that, you need to be consistent. And obviously, in order to do that, you need to launch your podcast. So here are 7 reasons why you should consider launching your own podcast. Number 1, growing popularity. Podcasts continue to gain popularity and have become a mainstream form of education for more people than ever. More and more people are tuning into podcasts for their daily dose of information, inspiration, and entertainment. Number 2, the ability to reach a targeted audience. Podcasts allow you to target specific niches and communities, whether you want to reach a global audience or cater to a particular interest group. Podcasts provide a platform to connect with your desired audience directly. So I want to give you an example of that. Many of my clients reach multiple countries. I think the top number I've seen for my clients is upwards of 40 countries. Our podcasts have the ability to reach a large global audience, which is so incredible because the more people you reach, the bigger impact you have. And that's why I am so excited to work with my clients, because they're doing amazing work, whether it's health and wellness, life coaching, or how to have a successful online business. Number 3, convenience. Podcasts offer listeners the flexibility to consume content on their own terms. So think about it. When your community, when your audience, when your clients are listening to your podcast, when and where are they doing that? That's one thing that I teach in my Unleash Your Voice program, is knowing your audience and knowing when and where they're listening. So for example, if your audience is people in corporate, they are driving to work potentially. They have maybe 30 minutes in the car. So maybe you're creating a podcast that's 20 minutes long that they can turn on and listen to on their drive into work or on their drive home. They get to decide. So always knowing where and when your community is listening and the people you want to reach helps you determine how and when you are going to deliver your podcast so that it's accessible and easy for your community to tune in. Number 4, establishing expertise and authority. Hosting a podcast can position you as an expert in your field, sharing valuable insights, interviewing leaders, or discussing relevant topics that help you build credibility and establish yourself as a leader and attract new opportunities. One of the best things when I started my podcast a few years ago was collaborating with other people who also had podcasts or who were in my niche, and interviewing them, doing podcast swaps, things like that, that grew my network and also grew my community that listens to my podcast. In the beginning, I was actually surprised when people reached out to me because they listened to my podcast and wanted to have me on their podcast. It's so fun, and it really does establish you as an authority in your niche. 5, monetization opportunities. This one is a whole other episode in itself, and it should have been probably number 1 here, but in no particular order. Number 5, monetizing your podcast. That is one of the main reasons why people have podcasts. Podcasting opens doors to various options. As the podcast market evolves, you have sponsorship deal opportunities, advertisement, affiliate marketing, merchandise sales, and premium content subscriptions. So there are so many ways to generate revenue. You just need to start. Additionally, if you have your own program, if you're an online course creator, or maybe you have one-on-one sessions, maybe you're a coach, you can advertise those programs, those one-on-one services in your podcast. The podcast gives you a wider reach so that you are reaching more and more people that you can serve. And that's what we're all about here, helping each other out. Number 6, personal connection with your listeners. Podcasting offers a unique opportunity to build personal connections with your audience. You're sharing stories and experiences and opinions. You're creating relationships with your listeners and fostering loyalty and engagement. It helps with your engagement on your social media channels. So maybe they've listened to your podcast and they've hopped over to your social media channels, and now they're engaging with you more than before you had your podcast. And lastly, for now, number 7, low barrier to entry. You hear me talk about this all the time if you followed along. Please, please, please do not think that starting a podcast is incredibly difficult, or that it's incredibly technical, or that it's super expensive. If you're seeing that out there, run the other way, because in 2024, that does not need to be the case. In 2024, when this is being recorded, you can use free tools to record, edit, and publish. You don't need expensive recording equipment. You don't need a special studio. You don't need to be tech savvy. You know that. Can you say Descript? I know, I say it all the time. So, in closing, I encourage you to start a podcast if you have a message you want to share. Starting a podcast is going to help you share that message with a wider audience. And of course, if you want to start your own podcast and you want to have that podcast out into the world, feel free to reach out to me. My Unleash Your Voice program is open for applications. I'd love to see you on the inside. I'd love to help you launch your podcast. Every person that I've worked with thus far, 100% now have a podcast out in the world. And that is so, so amazing. And I'm so happy about that. And I want more and more of you to have your own podcast so that you can serve more people, so that you can also serve yourself. Having a podcast is going to save you time, it's going to build your confidence, it's going to give you a new skill set. If you are somebody who's looking to get into public speaking, starting with a podcast is super easy and a great way to build your skills. All right, that's it for this episode. Please subscribe, share, and leave a 5-star review. I'd appreciate it so much. And if you want to start your own podcast, you can click on the link in the show notes and reach out to me to apply for my Unleash Your Voice program. Until next time, continue to wonder boldly.